Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a geographical journey. We're focusing specifically on countries with the longest coastlines.
Right. It's a really interesting metric when you start digging into it.
We've got a list here from 10 most today, their top 10.
Okay.
And our mission really is to figure out, what makes a coastline long.
What are the key ingredients?
Exactly. And maybe uncover some surprising links between that coastline length and, other things about a country.
Yeah, because the source, 10 most today, it mentions that intuitive idea, right? That it's going to be linked to overall size or how much water territory a country has.
Makes sense on the surface.
It does. But I think as we unpack this top 10, we'll see it's not always that simple.
Okay, let's dive in then. Top spot, Canada.
Yeah.
An absolutely massive 202,080 kilometers of coastline.
Just staggering, isn't it? 125,000 miles or so.
It really is. And the article notes Canada have the largest water area, second largest country overall. So size seems like the obvious answer here.
Size is definitely a huge factor for Canada. I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But it's more than just vastness, Think about the shape of Canada's coast. It's incredibly complex.
How so?
Well, all those islands, especially up in the Arctic archipelago, and the bays, the inlets, it's really jagged.
Okay. So not just area, but the complexity of the edge itself.
Precisely. It's about the perimeter, and Canada's is just exceptionally long and winding.
That makes a lot more sense. Okay, number 2, Indonesia. Still huge, 54,716 kilometers.
Still a very long coastline, yeah.
Now, the article points specifically to its nature as an archipelago. Thousands of islands.
And that's the key difference, isn't it? Where Canada has scale, Indonesia has fragmentation.
Fragmentation. Good word.
Yeah. Every single one of those islands, big or small, adds its own shoreline to the total.
So a bunch of islands will almost always beat a single landmass of the same area.
Generally, yeah. It really increases that total edge length dramatically. It's a geometry thing almost.
Interesting. Number 3, we have Greenland. 44,087 kilometers.
The world's largest island.
Right. But the article throws in this kind of surprising detail. Only about 56,000 people live there.
That's a striking contrast, isn't it? This enormous coastline, much of it locked in ice, bordering a very sparsely populated land.
Yeah. What does that tell us?
Well, it shows that just having a long coastline doesn't automatically mean, intense human interaction along its whole length.
Okay.
Geography, climate. In Greenland's case, the ice, they heavily influence how that coastline is actually used or experienced. It's very different from a densely populated island nation.
Right. Okay. Number 4 is Russia. 37,653 kilometers.
Back to sheer size again.
Yeah, the article reminds us Russia's the largest country overall, second largest water area.
It is huge. But notice it's fourth, not first or second.
Good point. Why is that, do you think?
Well, while it's massive, a lot of its coastline, especially the northern Arctic coast, is actually, relatively speaking, quite smooth.
Smoother than Canada's Arctic, for instance.
Potentially, yes, and certainly smoother than an archipelago like Indonesia. Think about the overall shape. A more consolidated, even if giant, landmass might not have the same extreme level of coastal complexity.
Got it. Shape matters, not just size.
Exactly.
Then number 5, the Philippines. 36,289 kilometers.
Very close to Russia's number.
And the article again says, islands, lots of them. But here's the kicker, it's only the 73rd largest country by area.
And that really drives the point home, doesn't it?
It really does.
The Philippines is maybe the prime example of how island geography just supercharges coastline length. You don't need continent-sized territory if you're broken up into enough pieces.
Maximizing that interface with the sea.
Perfectly put. Maximizing the interface.
Okay, 6th is Japan. 29,751 kilometers.
Another island nation?
Yep. The article says pretty much the same thing, 62nd largest country overall, but the island structure gives it a long coastline. We're seeing a clear pattern.
Absolutely. Island nations just, they punch above their weight in the coastline department relative to their land area.
It makes you think about how that must shape them, culturally, economically.
Oh, profoundly. Access to marine resources, trade routes, defense, even national identity.
Yeah.
It's all tied up with that extensive sea border.
Right. Number 7, Australia. 25,760 kilometers.
Back to a continent-sized landmass.
Yeah, the article notes it's the largest country with no land borders.
Yep.
And it's the 6th largest country overall. So here, size seems to correlate pretty well again.
It does. Australia shows that a very large single landmass naturally has a significant coastline.
Hmm?
But compared to the archipelagos or even Canada with its complex northern islands, Australia's coast is overall less fragmented, so it doesn't reach those really extreme lengths we saw earlier.
Makes sense. Then number 8, Norway. 25,148 kilometers, slightly less than Australia.
Interesting.
And the article doesn't give an explicit reason like islands or huge size. It just lists it. What give Norway its length?
Well, I think you can guess this one.
Oh.
What's Norway famous for geographically? Exactly. Those incredibly deep, long, narrow inlets carved by glaciers.
Okay, so they add a huge amount of length.
Tremendous amount. They make the coastline incredibly convoluted, wiggly, increases the total distance dramatically compared to a straight coast.
So complexity again, but a different kind. Glacial carving, not just islands.
Precisely.
Okay, number 9, the United States. 19,924 kilometers. And the article points out this contrast. 4th largest country, 3rd largest water area, but only 9th in coastline.
Yeah, that feels like a bit of an outlier compared to the size correlation we saw with Canada or Russia.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the U.S. has long coastlines on the Atlantic and Pacific for sure, and Alaska adds a lot. But compared to, say, Indonesia or even Norway, large stretches are relatively smooth. Less indented, maybe?
Less fragmented.
Less fragmented, yes. Fewer major archipelagos directly contributing in the same way as the Philippines or Indonesia. So while it's huge and has lots of water access, the specific shape or configuration of that land-sea border isn't maximized for length in the same way as some others.
So configuration is key.
It seems to be critical, yes.
And finally, rounding out the top 10, New Zealand. 15,134 kilometers.
Not a huge country overall.
No, 75th largest, the article says. But it ranks 10th in coastline because...
It's mainly 2 large islands plus some smaller ones.
Right. So even just being split into 2 main parts gives it a significant coastline for its size.
Exactly. It reinforces that theme again. Insularity, being composed of islands, even just a couple of big ones, really bumps up your coastline ranking.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. What are the main takeaways?
Well, it seems pretty clear there are 2 main paths to a very long coastline.
Path 1.
Be enormous, like Canada, Russia, even Australia to an extent. Sheer scale gives you a lot of edge.
Okay. Path 2.
Be fragmented. Be an archipelago like Indonesia or the Philippines or Japan. Lots of islands equals lots of shoreline.
Right. And sometimes those overlap, like Canada has both size and islands.
True. And then there's a sort of bonus factor, coastal complexity, like Norway's fjords, which can also add significant length even if the overall area isn't top tier.
And then we have cases like the U.S. where huge size doesn't automatically guarantee a spot right at the very top, probably because the coast is, relatively speaking, less complex or fragmented.
Exactly. So it's this fascinating mix, isn't it? Size matters, but how that size is distributed, whether it's one block or many pieces or has a really intricate edge, seems to be just as, if not more, important.
So it really boils down to the interplay between scale and geography, fragmentation, complexity.
That sums it up nicely. Scale and the specific geographical character of how land meets sea.
This has been, well, really illuminating. Peeling back the layers on just a simple list of numbers?
Geography is often more nuanced than it first appears.
Absolutely. So for you, our listeners, here's something to think about. We've seen why these countries have such long coastlines. Now, consider how that might shape them. How does having such a massive border with the ocean influence a nation's culture, its economy, its whole relationship with the sea?
What kinds of unique opportunities does it present?
And what challenges, too? Think about these top 10 countries. What specific things might they face, good or bad, simply because they have so much coastline?
It's a great question to ponder.
Definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.